Hi everyone. So next thing we are talking about is how can you render the static content, which is like images and all from Next.js. So for that we can use this public folder. So inside pages we will have one public folder, and inside that you can put all your images and all. And in your JSX, like I have one component which is image, which is in the pages. Okay, there I can just simply provide the path, okay, my image.png. So when you put /, then it will start looking it inside a public folder, and you should have this particular image file in the public folder to make it compile. Okay, so the public folder can be used to just serve the static content. Either it can be image, font file, font, CSS and all the other things. Okay, now how we can manage the environment variables in our application. For that, I mean, from the Next.js documentation you can just have env.local, and in this you can provide all your environment variables. Next.js will load your environment variable from this file, okay, db user, host and password. If you want a specific environment variables which you wanted to use for the client side, then you just need to rename it with next public. So that means this particular variable will be available in the window object at the client side, and once you set these environment variables you can actually access that inside a component. Like in image.js, this is not the particular suitable example, but get static props, here you can connect to the database. Here we are passing all these environment variables. Okay, now next thing which we'll start talking about is routing. So we have covered very basic things about Next.js, is because Next.js is a framework and it is talking all about how we design pages, how we do data fetching, how we are supporting CSS, how the static files are getting served, and how we are managing environment variables, and then routing, dynamic routing, nested routing, right, API routes, and some of the advanced features. In the advanced features is you can actually customize all these things, app pages, you can create custom layout which will contain your base layout. Okay, inside that you will keep rendering your child routes. You can actually customize the document page underscore document, and then you can actually add a custom meta tags which is available throughout all the pages. Then you can add that inside a layout component page. You can actually create your custom error page, like currently we are getting 404 error page, so you can customize it based on your need. Okay, and mostly what we talked about is next, link next, okay, next router, next head. These are the some of the modules which we have talked till now. If I give you little summary, next link, which is actually used to create a link. Then we used next router, we used with router, use router to access the query parameter. Okay, we used next head, this is actually used to put a custom header, I mean custom head tag in your each and every HTML, right? So custom head will have your all meta tags, styles, whatever pre-built you wanted to put, then you just create a head tag inside your document or inside your layout. Okay, the data fetching is always an interesting part. We can actually use React hooks also to validate it, and little bit about router navigations. I mean, there are different events whenever the route change happens, route change started, route change stopped, route change error. There we can actually deal with different things. We already talked about end progress, a module which was helping us for loading of different routes. We have like next config.js, we haven't talked about it, but next config also you can write. Next config contains all the different attributes, like environment you can put here. Next config, what we put is some SES options, right? Similarly you can put environment options, base path. So if we talk about next config in documentation, then it has a lot of things. I'll just talk about the base path. It can be available in the documentation, what all attributes it is having. Some custom redirects if you want to have, then that is also available. CDN, custom webpack config you wanted to add, that can also you do in the next config. Okay, so you can actually write your next config, and rest all is about data fetching, because data fetching is the something which we do is we can use get static props or get server side props, right? So if you wanted to have a purely static site rendering where you wanted to get everything during the build time, you can actually use get static props, get server side props on each and every request. This external async call will be made, data will be available. Okay, get initial props is also there, we will talk about it. Get initial props is nothing but that allows you to initialize the data population, like your page is loading, right? So your data will appear. So get initial props can be used with get server side props when you wanted to actually show some data initially, and then some call is happening which will actually give you the data. So get initial props enables server side rendering in a page and allows you to do initial data population. It means sending the page with the data already populated from the server. This is actually used for server side optimization. So if we talk about a particular example, how it works is okay, let me just see this. Okay, we can actually use this get initial props on this page. It will actually make this content available to this particular page, or we can use it as a class based component also. So get initial props also takes all the argument in the context, path name, query, request, response and all. Okay, so now in the next video we'll talk about routing, dynamic routes, shallow routing. I mean, from the code we know the link. Using link tag you can actually navigate from one page to another page. What are the other ways, like router.push, router.fetch or something, prefetch or something method is also there, using which you can actually do the shallow rendering. Router.push is one, and rest we will take a look into the documentation.